Welcome back to the channel. Today I'm going to go over a certain product that I've really have come to like. This is very important to have when you're doing any type of turbo upgrades, any type of tuning that involves boost. It is the GFB electronic boost controller. Before I get started, please like, subscribe, and hit that notification bell if you haven't done so yet. Let's dive right in. So today, like I said in the earlier part of the video, I'm going to go over the GFB electronic boost controller. This is the G-Force 3. So it's the latest version they have out right now. The G-Force 2 and G-Force 3 are very similar in the boost controlling sense, but GF3 have added an option for you to actually tap into the boost controller with your wideband sensor so that it can actually control boost and overboost settings or lean conditions and things like that to give you a little bit more safety. All right, let me open this up and let's go get started with unboxing it first, and then I'll show you all the features that it has, and why it would be good for you to use this type of boost controller in your build. All right, so let's get unboxing. It's actually packaged pretty neatly. You pull that right out where it says pull. It has all these parts in it. Obviously, if you're not careful when you're pulling it out, it could all kind of fall apart. But as long as you pull the tab, the whole thing comes out as a neat box. Then it opens up like that. So first thing we're going to find, wiring harness. Okay. And inside this tube, let's see what's in here. So we're looking at vacuum lines. Okay. Put this off to the side. The actual solenoid, this is basically what controls your boost. Okay. The next thing, we have more vacuum lines. And it comes with different types of adapters, fittings, also double-sided tape to mount your controller itself, and some zip ties to tighten up your install. Then inside here is the actual controller. So this is all touchscreen, and basically all it is you run one plug, which is part of your harness, to the controller. And then there is also a vacuum port where you run the boost signal. That way your controller can see the actual boost your car is running. Okay. And it does come with colored instructions. And how can we forget? Nice sticker for the GFB brand. Everybody loves stickers, right? You could either put it on your car, put it on your laptop, put it on your toolbox, whatever. Now, here is the colored instructions. They do have these instructions online in PDF form, but their instructions here are pretty easy, straightforward. I will actually put this up as like a screenshot of the PDF, but yeah, I mean, the whole thing's color, so it's very easy to look at. If you don't know, if you have never set something up like this before, depending on your setup of internal or external, it has a diagram for that. All the different functions it goes over, and it's actually pretty friendly for the user. So I mean, that's pretty much it for the unboxing. That's basically all it comes with. That's basically all you really need when it comes to boost controller. So let me actually switch gears here, show you the advantages of using this particular product. All right, give me a minute here. Let me switch. Okay, so who best to tell us about their product than the actual manufacturer? So I'm at the manufacturer's website. Actually, we're going to go over the little product information they have. That way I can show you all the features that this particular boost controller has and why I really like this boost controller and why you should as well. All right. So first of all, if you look at the picture here, you can see the different types of colors that this can actually display. I will even show you with the product that I have in hand like what kind of colors it can display as well. So you can pretty much change the color of the display to match your interior lighting color. Okay, so your boost controller doesn't stand out, being that like it's the only red thing when all of your dashboard is white, or when all of your dashboard is green and this is just red or blue. You know, to me, like those little details matter. So I mean that's one good thing, that you can change the color of the display to whatever to match your car the closest. Okay. As for the actual functionality, so this can control up to 50 psi. I don't know how many of you out there are actually running 50 psi, but this can do it. Okay. Now, with that said, boost controllers actually can only about double the amount of the spring rate you have in your wastegate. So if your wastegate has a 20 psi spring in it, it can push up to about 40 psi. Obviously, you don't want to go to the maximum of everything. So like if let's say you're trying to target 30 psi, put in as much spring as you can, like a 20 psi spring. That way you will be able to adjust the additional 10 psi with the boost controller. If you're aiming for 20 psi, I would suggest putting in like a 15 psi spring in your wastegate. That way you have a little bit of leeway for the boost controller to actually control, to get you to that 20 psi target. Okay, so you can adjust peak boost, rise rate, closed loop correction. This basically means it does have gain, and it also has sensitivity, just like any other electronic boost controller out there. So it can actually try to help the turbo boost a little bit faster, the spool rate wise. It can't go beyond what the capable is physically capable of, but it does help with the spool rate and things like that. Now, that is something that you would want to consider discussing with your tuner to see if you can dial it in better. It's not something that you should mess with on your own without a proper tune. Okay. You can display in PSI, bar, or KPA. So depending on which region you're at, some countries, a lot of people use bar, but over here in the U.S., we like to use PSI. It is a little bit more accurate. It's down to like 10 psi, 11 psi, 12 psi versus zero point 0.9 bar, 1 bar, 1.2 bar. It's more on a smaller scale, so it's more manageable down to like the 0.5 psi, to make sure that you're not going to go over the capabilities of your engine. It does have 6 boost presets, so you can have a low boost setting, medium boost setting, high boost setting. You can even do like almost like a wastegate boost level setting, things like that, depending on the situation, depending on who's driving. You could always have those presets done. Another thing it does have a scramble feature, which basically, instead of switching presets to go to a higher boost setting, scramble will, for a short amount of time, will shoot up your boost to the scramble level. So I don't know how many people that actually use this, but I guess, if you like the feature of scramble, that's something that is available as well. Peak boost recall, meaning this boost controller also doubles as a boost gauge. Okay, so as you're driving and your boost is going back and forth, it will actually show the boost level on the actual screen, and it has the option to show you the peak boost level as well. So if you're actually doing pulls and you're not paying attention to your boost gauge, you can always look down after your initial pull and see what your boost actually peaked out at. Okay. Now this is the brand new function of the GFB G-Force 3. It now has the ability for you to tap into your AFR sensor. So if you have a separate AFR gauge, you'll have your wideband sensor and everything. From there, you can actually have an output that goes into the input of this that shows the AFR on the actual controller itself. It's, obviously if you have an AFR gauge, there's really no need to do that, but this is where it actually matters, because once the gauge is able to start seeing AFR, or the controller, I'm sorry, is able to see AFR, you can program it so that it cuts boost if it sees a lean condition. So whether it be, your fuel injector failed, or, your fuel pump failed, before it used to be, hey, it only has an overboost setting. So if it goes to let's say 25 psi is what you would set the overboost at, and if it sees that, it's going to cut boost. Now what it's going to do is it's going to see the boost as well, but it's going to look at the AFR, and instead of having a target of like a 12.0 AFR, if it sees like 15 and your boost is at like 25, it's just going to cut. All right, it's going to cut your cut due to your AFR being lean as well. So it's double the protection versus what the GFB G-Force II was only for overboost. So that's what's really, really nice, that you have double the protection. That way you make sure, your car is your investment sometimes. I mean, it's not the smartest investment, but it is an investment. And you don't want to lose that because of a certain part failure, like I said before, as like a fuel injector or a fuel pump. And honestly, human reaction is just not fast enough for you to realize, hey, my car's not getting enough fuel. Let me, lay off the throttle. It is so much quicker for the electronics to communicate with the sensors and just cut when it needs to. So that's definitely something that that makes me recommend the GFB G-Force 3 to a lot of people because of the AFR function. Now, keep in mind, it does not come with an AFR sensor or gauge on its own. It is there so that you can tap from the AFR gauge that you may have or you may add to the car. Okay, so that's a separate product that you need to purchase in order for this to work. All right. So again, it's going to display the AFR ratio if you need to. It's going to have, like I said, overboost and AFR lean mixture warning or boost cut. All right, the whole thing is touch screen, touch buttons. They actually work really, really well. And then it also has auxiliary input to switch boost presets to activate Scramble. So technically, you can do it right on the actual screen, but you could have a separate input of a controller that you can do it with. Okay. Let's see. The sizing, half-DIN size casing, fits standard stereo slot. I mean, if you wanted to fit it in there, you could. It doesn't have a specific way to mount it or anything into it. It's just that specific size. So you could do it, but like I said earlier when we were unboxing, they do give you double-sided tape that you could just stick on anywhere. All right, and lastly, it does come with the max solenoid. Max solenoid is pretty much a standard when it comes to boost controllers. It's the most reliable solenoid that you can get. So that's basically what these guys use. So let me actually connect up this controller to power. That way you can see all the little buttons and what it does and things like that. So let me get back to you in just a sec. All right, guys. So I've got this all set up. All right. So this is your default screen. Basically, what it's going to normally read on the screen is vacuum. All right. When you have your car on, it's going to show you the amount of vacuum / boost you're making. First thing, duty, gain, sensitivity, scramble, overboost, peak, display, input 1, input 2, color. Okay, so those are the options that you're going to have. So what does duty do? Duty is basically the amount of duty cycle that you're going to input in order to increase your boost. Okay, so this is technically not your PSI level or any type of target like that. All right, so this is just duty cycle of the actual solenoid in order to increase or decrease the boost that you're going to run. This is going to be different for each setup. It's going to be different for what type of spring you're running, what type of wastegate you're running, what kind of airflow it's seeing. So don't ask anybody hey, what kind of duty cycle are you running on your setup? Because your setup could be completely different. Like your FREC can be running 30 duty cycle to get 20 PSI, whereas in your setup, you might have to run 50 in order to get 20 PSI. So, okay, so every car is going to be different. So that's something that you shouldn't really compare to another person. All right. Gain is basically where it holds down the wastegate harder in a sense in order to actually make the turbo spool faster. It lets it leak less in order to actually induce faster spooling. Does it really work? Sometimes. Depends on the setup. Sometimes it really doesn't. So that's something that you want to discuss with your tuner about, see how it works. Next thing will be sensitivity. Sensitivity on how much sensitive the boost controller is going to be to keep the boost level that you are targeting. Okay, so you don't want to go too high on this either. When you go too high on it, your boost may be erratic because the solenoid is just clicking way too much in order to keep the boost level as smooth as it can. But because it's doing it so much, it might actually become more erratic to do so because you're not letting it actually build boost naturally and hold boost naturally. Okay, so again, something that to discuss with your tuner about when you're doing this. There's no magic number that it always works at. Okay, scramble boost. Okay, so scramble boost. You see those numbers when you go up and down. This is how long you want scramble boost to actually activate for. So 12 seconds, 15 seconds, 30 seconds, however long. This can be used for when you're drag racing, for when you're doing whatever. So it can be done two different ways. You can do it so that it actually decreases boost from what your target normally is, or increases boost from where your target normally is. A lot of people think scramble always means you're boosting up, but it's actually both ways. Why would you want to scramble so that your boost is lower? It's for people when they're trying to launch. Let's say your car normally targets 25 psi, but at 25 psi, you're going to sit there and just spin it. You want that 25 psi to only come on in your second gear. Okay, so what are you going to do? Basically, you wire up the scramble switch. So scramble switch could be just a little button, whether it be a steering wheel button or a shift knob button, whatever it may be. All it does is it actually hooks up to the blue wire of the wiring harness, and then it grounds it every time the button is pressed. Now, every time the button is pressed, the boost controller goes into scramble mode. Okay, and when it goes into scramble mode, you have a separate duty cycle, overboost setting, and all that as well. When it goes into scramble mode, you can make it so that it targets a lower boost. So let's say your wastegate spring is set at 20 psi. Okay, but during your second, third, fourth gear, you actually want to target 25 psi. So what you would do then is set it at wastegate duty cycle, which will be 0 duty cycle under scramble boost function. Set it at however long you think you're going to need that for. 2 seconds, 3 seconds, 4 seconds, 5 seconds, whatever. That way you're launching at a lower boost target. That way you're not sitting there roasting your tires. And by the time you hit second, scramble is off, goes into the first preset or second preset, whatever preset you want it to go into, and it starts boosting higher. In another sense, what you can do is you could just have a day-to-day driving setting where you're running 20 psi, and then if you decided you need that extra 5 psi when you're trying to race someone, you can set up the scramble boost that way so that you could actually press the button and gain additional 5 psi of target. Now, obviously, these are something that the tuner actually has to tune for you. Don't do this without getting a tune for it, because your car needs to be capable of basically figuring out what the AFR target needs to be for the scramble boost and things like that. Okay. All right. So we just went over scramble, overboost settings. So OVR, this is where you will set, what I think this is set in bar right now. So it's going to see, like 1.2 bar would be your overboost setting. Okay. Peak. So this is peak setting of showing you what your peak boost was after your initial pull. Like I said before, it's like a boost controller and a boost gauge in the same sense, and it's nice to see. When you hit display, you can change from bar, PSI, KPA. So depending on how you want to display your boost, that's where you change it. Input 1, this is where you would actually connect that scramble button that I was talking about. You could change it to preset. Basically means every time you press the button, it's going to change different presets. So you can go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 presets, like I said, on their website. You can do that. Or if you put it on Scramble, it'll just go to the Scramble map. So that's how you do the input 1. Input 2 is where AFR gauge gets inputted. All right, so AFR 1, AFR 2, and things like that. Color, this is where we change the color of the display. You see the colors I'm scrolling through. It almost looks like a disco with all the colors changing. So that's where you're going to change that, okay? And then that's it. That's pretty much it, all right? So those are all the options there. Now, when we're on the default screen, you can change this down to P2, which is preset 2, preset 3, preset 4, preset 5, preset 6, and then the last one will be Scramble. So Scramble is basically you will set the duty cycle for the scramble boost. Okay. And then back to P1 again. So hopefully this video helps you out. If you are looking for a new boost controller to replace what you have, definitely give the GFB a good look, because the G-Force 3, like I said, has not only overboost protection, but also has lean protection when it connects to your AFR gauge. Also has a really neat scramble function where you can have 2 different sets of boost levels. You can also set how long you want the scramble to be. And, by having that, you can control your car better. Okay. So, please like and subscribe if you haven't done so yet. And if you want to order yourself the GFB G-Force 3, make sure to visit our website, www.shopbto.com. Under Universals, there's going to be a boost controller section where you're going to be able to find this right away. I'm also going to have the link down in the descriptions. That way you don't have to go through the process of trying to find it. You can just click the link and go straight to it if you need to purchase one. Okay? All right. I think that pretty much covers everything I wanted to cover today. So I will see you on the next one. Peace.